Kevin Snow and I are back for the fifth chakra. So far we've covered 1 through 4. Today is the throat chakra. And then the first Sunday of next month will be the sixth chakra. And in July, the first Sunday, we'll have the seventh chakra. And Kevin and I will discuss whether we want to do one more where we do a run through of all the chakras. Um, I have Kevin's information on the ticker tape below. It lets you know how you can reach him. And also, briefly, before we get into it, I wanted to mention that I just took um, an 8-week course with um, with Kevin, and called the Integrity Process. And it's all about transforming trauma with a big T and with a little t. And soon he will have a website up and running that will be called, if I'm not mistaken, theintegrityprocess.com.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I want to say that I think that this is an invaluable resource. It's not a workshop that I wouldn't even really call it a workshop, but it's not a course that you take and then set aside. It's really a tool that can become a practice for the rest of your life. I
Hmm.
really wish that it were taught all over the world in many languages, beginning as a freshman in high school.
Right.
I think this would give people a lot of tools that would utterly change the way that their life unfolds.
Mm.
And I can't say enough about it.
Yay.
So today, as we discuss the throat chakra, we can incorporate a little bit of how, um, because the integrity process does touch on all the chakras. And so today, as we're discussing the throat chakra, we'll be sure to include a little bit of information from the integrity process. Thank you for
Absolutely.
being here today, Kevin.
It is a pleasure. Absolutely. I'm glad that we're doing this series, and I'm glad that it's integrating well into the integrity process. And I know that when this was downloaded to me, this title of what this work is, because that took a while basically for it to actually come up with something that we could call it. And I was like, whoa, that's kind of a lot to live up to. But I think we've done pretty well. And I love the group that we got together to do the inaugural
Mhm.
journey of the integrity process. And I think that it's just really fed into it and made it even better.
Yeah. There were 12 of us, weren't there?
14. Yeah.
Oh,
Hmm.
14. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice number. I like
Absolutely. Yeah.
that. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to go into it as much, but my heart is moved to speak that, having worked with you for 5 years and then watching this course unfold over the 8 sessions that we had together, um, I really could see how it was. It's not to say
Mm.
there won't be another magnum opus, but I
Right.
really feel this is a magnum opus for you, this body of
Hmm.
work. That
Absolutely.
it's a culmination of all your own spiritual practices, of all your own studies, of where you've been placing your focus and time and energy and dedication in your life.
Yes.
And then bringing that all into coalescence in a shareable form that offers tools to others, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. This is definitely me sitting with the pendulum, asking questions and saying, how do we do this? And really kind of challenging assumptions. That's really coming forward in the class now too, is like the assumptions that we operate from and how the guidance that is coming through in this process is often quite different. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
so it's kind of exciting to see that, what we've come up to thus far, and this is all developmental. So, in this way, that's how I see and construct these realities is through the stages of development. And this is definitely the next phase of development. And like you said, with development, there's always a next step.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, for those of you who don't know, on the last session was all about compassion,
Yeah.
and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful session. They all are. And I'm a big note taker, so I was in there taking my notes. And at the very end of the session, Kevin realized he hadn't recorded it. And that's a bit of a snafu
Yeah.
because one, he always records the session and then sends them back to the students so we can review it, over
Yeah.
our lifetime and over as we work with this. But the other thing is that he was recording all these sessions because it will be an online course that's offered. So I
Absolutely.
just thought, boy, talk about getting tested by spirit. And then I thought,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, it speaks to impermanence and non-attachment,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
knowing that what was said was meant for exactly that time, and that you have all that information with you to do, a different recording. Um,
Yes.
and then I also thought about the number 8, like there was 8 sessions.
Mhm.
If
Yeah.
you record it again, well, you didn't record it, but you know what I mean? There were 8 sessions. And
Right.
when you record this, that'll be 9, and that's a number of completion.
Absolutely. They've always got something worked out, right? That
Yeah.
they don't quite tell me. So
Yeah.
at the end, I was like, here's everything that I've taught. And here's the non-reactive part
Yeah.
of, wow, okay, well, that's going to require me recording and bringing all that information back through, because a lot of times people will ask me like, what did you say there, or here, what did you say? And then because it's so channeled, I won't be able to remember, and so I just have to put my notes in front of me again and just
Yeah.
let it move through me again. Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely.
So moving on to the throat chakra, I put some what I thought was jasmine oil on my throat chakra today.
Yeah.
I often do that before I get on here with anyone.
Yeah.
And I just have all my essential oils that I put on for the day lined up in my medicine cabinet. And I grabbed one, same label as the jasmine, but it was actually vetiver
Ah,
for the
interesting.
root chakra.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, well, I guess everything I'll be speaking today will be very grounded. So I put the vetiver and the jasmine on, and
Perfect.
it's an interesting combination. So let's do something a little backwards from how
Okay.
we usually do it. I would like to talk about all the tools that people can use, like the essential oil and the stones, etc., for the throat
Yeah.
chakra. We just touched on jasmine being good for opening
Absolutely.
up the throat chakra and being able to speak our truths. Can you give us some other information that's on your chart and
Absolutely.
in your
Definitely.
head?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that the jasmine is an interesting one, because typically what I recommend in session is lavender, and lavender has a lot of other benefits, and specifically kind of in this throat chakra in general, which would include nasal sinuses, front sinus, back sinus. And so the deeper into the chakra, into the physicality of it, and that's kind of an interesting way to look at it too, is that each one of these chakras has a physical, emotional, mental, and so they're all, because we have 7, and so each one of them have the layers of that as well. And so then when we look at jasmine, and say that jasmine is this more upper chakra, and so these top 3 chakras, throat, third eye, crown, and so it's kind of, it integrates better with this upper chakra world. So that's fascinating that you put a vetiver in there, which will connect the upper and the lower chakras, and so, which really truly is grounding. And so that's one of the things that I say a lot when in my work, is that we think of grounding as just earth, but really this is a ball flying through space at some amazing rate of speed. And so really grounding is coming into the heart and allowing this upper world and lower world, as above so below, to come together. And so that's what we're doing here. And so when we give you a recommendation like jasmine, this is, because a lot of people will say, well, I thought it was this, or I thought it was this. And all those are true in a way, right? So they're all true as this chakra integrates into other areas of our body, of our mind, of our emotions. And so we just give you this basic principle of jasmine and how jasmine can be in this world that we live in. I make this little spray that I call clarity spray, and it has jasmine in it. It has, right, it has all the things that thieves would have in it as well. So it's got a little
Mm.
lemon, it's got clove, it's got nutmeg, it's got these things that are kind of combining this upper and lower world.
Mm.
And I use this every day before I start sessions. Just kind of let the mist come down over me, and use it when I go out and about as well. So it's really helpful in that way. But that's one of the things that jasmine does is it creates like a force field or a bubble, and that clearing is really important for us as we kind of move around through our day. And this is just another way that we can, I've been doing some traveling lately and getting on an airplane and doing these things. It's just really helpful to have something like that. And I make it into a spray bottle, into a mist. So that would be water, a good quality water. And I use the witch hazel to kind of let it suspend a bit, but you always have to shake it with essential oils. But and then we put these oils in there, and it really is. It's just kind of a refreshing, so clarity. So we had a good name for it. But yeah, so and jasmine is one of those that tends to be more expensive, and so it's also like rose. So some of these oils don't have a lot of oils you can cut, and then it starts really getting weak. And jasmine is one of these oils like rose where you can cut it and cut it and cut it and cut it. It doesn't seem to lose its power or strength no matter how many times you cut it. And so you get it in a hydrosol or, in a way basically that would be less expensive than buying just this, really refined jasmine. And also it's, equally balanced because it takes forever to use it as well. So you just use very small amounts of jasmine when you use it. So even in like that spray bottle, I'll use kind of regular 3-4 drops of other oils, and then I'll just use 1 drop of jasmine.
Mm.
And so it's quite powerful. And so, yeah.
So to reiterate for those who are wondering how you can make your own hydrosol. So normally a hydrosol, okay, so you have when essential oils are made, there's the oil component and then
Hmm.
there's the water component. But if you want to make your own hydrosol at home, you
Hmm.
can take a spray bottle, whatever size you like, and you can put 50%, spring water, filtered water, high quality water, structured water, whatever you want. And then
Hmm.
the other 50%, as he mentioned, witch hazel. And then you put your drops in there. And as he mentioned, because the witch hazel is heavier, it helps to suspend that in the air when you spray it. If you just do it with water, it's not going to hang around in the air as long. So thank you for that, Teddy.
Perfect. Yeah, definitely. So it's definitely a way to interact with these oils. I know a lot. When I first started using essential oils, I had all of these. I just got a lot of them, as many people do. And then I just was looking at all these oils that I had, like, what the heck do I do with all these things? And so it came to me because I do this work where I ask questions and answer questions for others and myself. Why don't I just ask? Why don't I just ask what oil is for what chakra? And so that's kind of where this started. And I've got like this old kind of tattered list that I used during sessions of, different oils for different chakras and different purposes. And so yeah, it definitely this list that we have here comes from that.
Um, there's in the integrity process, we'll still get to like the stones and
Mhm.
what else is related here. Um, but oh, there was something I was going to say about anger because one of the ways that we
Mm,
express our anger is through our
yeah.
voice, and the essential oil that is good for anger that I learned from you is Elemi. It's spelled Elemi for anybody who's
Yeah.
interested in that. Um, what stone is good for the?
Turquoise. Yeah. So, and the color itself, as it came through to me, and I'm not somebody who really sees colors of chakras, but I have a sense. I'm more of a kinesthetic person. And so I have a sense for the energetic of a chakra, but I usually don't see the colors. But I have seen these colors. And so, it's blue, it has a blue quality, but this is more of
Aqua.
the aqua, right? So it has a softer blue color to it, and the stone itself has these qualities of, and you kind of look back in history: strength, clarity, clarity of speech. A lot of the shamans, the priests would wear kind of a combination of, usually that red coral and turquoise go together, and a lot of these kind of ceremonial, have a ring that has that and a necklace. And so we kind of see the history of it, and as it comes through, we often wear turquoise in the throat chakra. And
Yeah.
so that's one of the main places where we wear this particular stone. And it really, the way that I see it is that it allows for both the directions. So the listening of the throat chakra and the
Mm.
speaking. And so it's really helping that transition from, I'm getting my intuitive guidance and I'm sharing it out into the world.
Mm.
And that protection, we call it protection, but it is, um, just understanding that we live in a really strong duality world, as we've mentioned each time in these sessions, that this duality of negative and positive. And why do we call it protection? Because when we're building something, we need to protect it. So we think of that developmentally as well. When we're building a human, basically it needs protection within the womb, outside of the womb, with parents, with community, with, and so we're thinking that in the same way as we're developing these chakras, they need some extra protection from this negativa so that we can grow within the positive and love. And so always we're talking about negative, positive, neutral, and that connectivity of the positiva and love, neutral, and how these stones, oils, right, when we talk about the qualities, so the virtue and the vice, or the deadly sin and the grace, right, we have these different names, but essentially that's what we're talking about here. Is it allows us to create balance of positive and negative. It's not denying one or the other. It's just basically saying, how do we go from more of an extreme polarity more into the center? And so these things that we're recommending will help us do that.
Thank you. The positiva of the throat chakra is courage.
Yeah.
And what is the negativa?
It is gluttony, right? So I'm using the words that we use for the deadly sins. Just to kind of keep it simple. We all know that there's 7 deadly sins, so they fit kind of well into the chakra system. And what do we mean by deadly? Really, authentically, too much attachment is deadly. And so, and too much dissociated energy is also. So here we're talking about the grace and the vice, and we put those again in this center space and say, when I have courage and I actually balance that with my intake. So we think of gluttony as what's coming in. So if I'm over consuming life, if I'm over consuming emotions, drama, all of the things that basically this world provides us to over consume. And this is what Carolyn Miss, talks about this really well, as far as the brain and the heart, and what's in the middle of that, this throat chakra. And what is happening in this throat chakra? Addiction. Typically, this is where all the things come in that are addictive. And that's what we're thinking of as gluttony. When we overuse a sacred substance, it is gluttonous. It is too much.
How does gluttony, like, okay, so I have something that I need to communicate. Um, and it doesn't always have to be words,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't always have to be with somebody else. It could be something we need to communicate even to ourselves, or
Absolutely.
something we're in denial of, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how do we run away from being courageous and speaking our truth, or come out
Mm,
of denial and into gluttony. So we might do that by overeating, we might do that by
hmm.
smoking, we might do that by like some vice, like you said, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
I was looking, I still want to come back to, like, you know, how there's the hummingbird for the first chakra
Hmm.
and the archangels for the second chakra, etc. I want to come back to that. But
Perfect.
I was looking yesterday at what are some of the countries that have the highest rates of throat cancer.
Ah,
And it was interesting. So Malawi was number one.
interesting.
Mongolia was high up there. Japan was high up there. And then this morning, I found a different link that said Hungary was number one.
Mm,
So I started thinking about, and then I didn't get to really tease out these statistics of women versus men.
sure.
But I thought that Japan was interesting because these, like, even though Japanese men and women speak the same language,
Hmm.
they also they speak very differently within their language. So in other
Yes.
words, if you and I are Japanese and we're riding in a car, say we're sitting in the back and it's hot,
Hmm.
we want to ask the driver, could he please roll down the window? You could just ask the driver to roll down the window. I would have to say, can you please roll down the window if you feel it's appropriate at this time?
Yes,
That
exactly.
shows you that sort of
Hmm.
subservience and the
Yes.
difference and the inequality and I could see how that would affect
Oh,
like throat
definitely.
chakra, playing
Absolutely.
directly into the psyche of that that imbalanced inequality between the men and the women, through speech even.
Absolutely. And it's a really important point because, I mean, culturally, right? So there's, like you say, there's many cultures that have this patriarchal bias. And and so what we're doing here is we're saying, yes, the receptivity and the directedness, that would be the feminine receptivity, masculine directed, and how, specifically in relationship to cancer, because in what my research is, right, research talking to these guides, that the essence of the manifestation or the creation of cancer within this physical body is fed by what we are thinking of as resentment. And so there are many people that actually don't hold resentment to that inequality because they have been so bred into it that they actually see it as sacred. So that's kind of where we see that there is a sacredness to inequality as well. And that can mask into this world too, where spirit guides are higher than me, and what does that mean? They have more development. And so when we place it into humans, it gets a little tricky that, does this person have more development or not? Are they a master of what they do or not? And so that's what we're talking about here is oftentimes when somebody is unequal, and we talk about that as far as codependence as well, right? So this is the definition of codependence, that it's this or this, it's not this. And so, and typically that's where a lot of this resentment starts in us, is in our codependent developmental stage. So somewhere between 3 and about 13. And so that's important to understand here too, that if we do not emerge out of that codependence into an independence and into an interdependence, then we continue this resentment. And that resentment can show up. And it does usually show up in the chakra where this is happening. So, where the inequity, inequality, and the resentment that's the result of that is coming to, the fore in our lives.
Hmm. Besides, that brought up a few things. See
Yeah.
if I can track it. Besides, you talk about sacredness and sort of this hierarchy, like, okay,
Mhm.
well, ascended masters or certain spirit guides have more development than us, and that's why we look to them. And in that way, there's a sacredness in the inequality. But where can you, like, how is there a sacredness in inequality, like between in any ism, like ageism,
Mhm.
sexism, and what is there anything sacred there? I just don't really see it.
Correct. Yeah, no, it's very difficult to find that because we could kind of jump back into the substances. So we could say alcohol, tobacco, right? We just take these two primary things that, even caffeine, that we are participating in as humans in this culture, and say that I can be in right relationship or in equality with alcohol in a way that is, I respect it as the spirit that it is, and I consume it in a way. And I've actually asked this for different people. It shows up for individuals in different ways because we all have a liver that works or doesn't, immune system that works or doesn't. So we also have to consider that. But in this way, that a non alcoholic, so a person who is not addicted to alcohol,
Mhm.
can definitely consume alcohol in a sacred way. Same with smoking, right? In the Native American traditions, where they use tobacco and tobacco mixture to create a prayer. They breathe it in and they speak and intend the prayer and breathe it out into spirit. And so there is a way to be in right relationship with these substances. And it's tricky because when I say that, most people aren't. And so most people don't understand that there is a sacredness to all of these relationships, and that if we keep them in balance, and that would be like, here is the parent child relationship within that codependent structure where it is an integrity. So this is where respect of parents when they are in integrity, and and so this is where it gets really tricky, right? It's that, flower of life behind you, where it's all intertwined, and so to speak one way of it is difficult, but to simplify it, we can be in right relationship. And like you said, the isms, and these things that are obsessive compulsive, belief systems that come out of us as unequal. And so something that would be ageism, oh, that person is too old, that person is too overweight, that person is too. And so we really do get into that, and a lot of that is, like we said earlier, what's the thing that is overconsumed? Negative self talk. For most of us, negative self talk is overconsumed. And so we kind of pull it back into that realm, right? And we say all of this negativity that's rolling around and creating the not enough and the not fair, and right, that is way overconsumed. And so one of the things that we do is say, actually, negative self talk does quiet down when we speak truth. So if we're withholding truth, again, what is truth? Love. So we all have our individual truths that may or may not be balanced with society. But the truth, which is a tricky business to say, but we're just putting it in the context of, is it love? Does it feel like love? And so if I'm saying something that doesn't feel like love, then I need to have recognition of that, have it reflected back to me. Like, that was unkind. And so, oh yeah, you're right, right? Or maybe I don't have any awareness of that. So we're kind of jumping around here, but we're staying in that context of, if I can keep a balance. So I'm listening to my intuitive, I'm listening to the guides, I'm acting in a way. So I'm putting myself in the world in integrity. And what does that mean? It is to the degree of my development. And that's what we understand. And we say, okay, I may be very gluttonous in this developmental phase, where I'm just taking in all kinds, because if we put it in a positive context, is learning gluttonous? Yeah, it totally can be.
Oh yeah,
Right.
I'm a living proof.
Right. So just taking it in, taking it in, taking it in.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people will say, and a lot of times in sessions, I'll have this feedback of, yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Oh, I know that. Yeah, I know that. And it's like, yes, there is a gnosis, there is a knowledge of it, but is it acting in the world? Is that knowledge actually translating? And the throat chakra is the big place where that happens.
The okay, so the throat chakra, for those who may not have ever thought about it this way, the throat chakra is the emotional body. Sorry,
Mhm.
it's not the emotional body, it's a mental body.
It is.
The solar plexus is the emotional body,
Mhm.
and Kevin has, taught me this. I didn't realize it before, but it's really cool. So you the chakras, because really we think of this chakra as like this linear thing because they're on our spine, right, coming out from the front and the back. But anyway, we think of it
Yeah.
as this vertical thing. Really, you want to think of it more like a toroidal field, because those chakras are what make our aura, and our aura
Mhm.
is our chakra energy circulating through our electromagnetic toroidal field, right?
Yes.
So if you think about it that way, it's kind of cool. You can realize that the root is connected to the crown, and
Mhm.
the second chakra is connected to the sixth chakra.
Mhm.
The third chakra is connected to the fifth chakra. And what you have is 1 and 7, root and crown, is 8. And 2, second chakra, and sixth chakra is also 8.
Mhm.
And 3, third chakra, and fifth chakra is also 8. So Kevin says that the eighth chakra is the heart, because the heart is the one that connects them all. So when you think of that toroidal field, you
Yeah.
have the sphere, but it's like a donut, right? And in the
Mhm.
center of that donut, connecting all of the chakras, is the heart.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's just such a and I like the little math thing that we do with it, right? So it's like, it's like, oh, these all equal 8 when you connect them.
Yeah.
And so, and then we really do get that sense of container better. Because when we just have the vertical understanding, it's like I'm part of a bigger container. But when I really get this 3 above, 3 below,
Mhm.
as above, so below, that these things are connecting to create the container. And so that's how we can start in the heart and move back out, start in the extremity and move back in.
Mhm.
And that's really what our breath is. And so, really, that breathing from the base of the spine and the crown and bringing that breath into the heart, and then exhaling from that heart out into this, whatever this stuff is, right? and and then we bring another breath in and out. So that really does regulate this chakra system very well.
Yeah, I've been, since you said that, because I forgot about it. When I was studying Tibetan Buddhism,
Hmm.
I knew of that, but then I stopped thinking of that. Actually, so we're breathing in through the crown and the root into our heart, and then sending it out. And when I picture sending it out, I picture that breath as the thing that is the momentum
Nice.
circulating the electromagnetic field in my toroidal field, right?
Yeah, totally.
And but yeah, in Tibetan Buddhism, they talk about that. So you have this constant,
Hmm.
up down movement in your sushumna, or your
Hmm.
central channel.
Yes.
And at the time of death, there ceases to be this up and down,
Hmm.
right?
Yes,
And that, if
absolutely.
you don't have any up and down, you don't have the vital life force. So
Absolutely, definitely.
um, so yeah, it's very appropriate that the emotional body and mental bodies are connected. And
Hmm.
we
Yes.
often speak from a place of emotion. I don't
Hmm.
feel this is fair. I don't feel this is kind. I feel like this. I'm feeling
Hmm.
anger. I'm feeling whatever
Hmm.
it is. We express our emotions through our
Absolutely.
throat chakra. So naturally,
Yes.
they are tied. Is there what do you just like we have the hummingbird that's connected to the root chakra,
Hmm.
and we have the archangels that are connected to the second and sixth chakras. What do we got
Hmm.
going on here?
Yeah, the Father, or as it's guided to me, eternal Father.
Mhm.
And so that language seems ancient to me, but it is the Father that always is. And it really does touch into what we did as we came out of all of these polytheistic things. So we call them religion, we call them, philosophy, whatever that is, but it has a multitude of gods or demigods or all these different characterizations like angels, and so part of that world is a mother and a father. And so what we did when we turned God into the Father is that we lost this eternal Father, because what we did was we took the Father and made it into the oneness of all that is, or the non dual. And that is very confusing to this brain. It's all about duality to say there is this overwhelming force that is running everything, that is keeping planets from crashing into each other and keeping us from crashing into each other. And right, so this universal life force energy that we call God, and that is now represented in duality with a gender, father. And
Just as
so,
the emotional, just
yeah.
want to insert this for the audience. So the emotional body is the eternal mother,
Mm-hmm.
and the mental body is the eternal father. Going back to
Absolutely.
you. Thank you for letting me.
Absolutely, right? So this is that connectivity that we have in spirit or in the metaphysical realm, probably more likely as we're using that language. The non-physical or metaphysical has a mother and a father. And in the shamanic tradition, it is Mother Earth, Father Sky. And so that's our duality: Father Sky, Mother Earth, above, below, and mental, above, below, emotional. And everybody has a bias. So when you're dealing with somebody in a partnership relationship, work relationships, that's really good to understand what that other person's bias is it emotional or is it mental? We lean more towards one or the other, and you can usually hear it in the language: I think that, or I feel that.
Mm,
And so you can hear it pretty quickly when people talk, which one they use primarily,
mhm.
and how that thinking, right? We think of these upper chakras as thought, as it's coming into the creation or manifestation into the physical, and how we land that into beliefs, which is basically what is contained with the Father. So the Father gives us beliefs, whether they're positive or negative, is how that plays out. And most of us that are living in this physical reality have been gifted negative beliefs. Things are not fair. I'm not enough, and I am abandoned. And those are the primary father thought patterns that become beliefs. And when they become settled into a belief structure, now I'm feeding into my emotional self, not fair, into anger. What we mentioned about cancer earlier, resentment. Those two things are what create resentment. This isn't fair. It's not in integrity. I use the not fair because that's more childlike, and in the adult languaging it would be integral or in integrity. This thing that's happening is not in integrity. It's not equal for me and them, and we live in a world that is predominant. And so we have to come to a place of surrender and acceptance and forgiveness of self, right? These are the integrity words, and how we can readjust that integrity within ourselves in a situation that may not change at all, with a person or even a situational circumstance where it doesn't change at all, but we do. Our response to it becomes: I accept, I surrender, I have forgiveness for other and self. And so that's what we're doing to create responsiveness. And this father, I mean, a lot to say about this father, right? The cultures that we remember. So basically, we'll think of Odin as the All Father in that Norse tradition, and and that was a primary character in that tradition. So that we look to that character for behavior. So it was a teaching tool, like what would Odin do? And so when we look at that and say that we can adjust ourselves to that, so that we're looking at what is the character. And I'll ask people to do that, like, who do you think the father is? It's like not necessarily my father, but the father, the eternal father, the one that's always been. And different cultures, like I said, have different identifiers. It's usually the old guy with the staff, and sometimes the staff has a snake on it. And so that's who we think of as the father represented in that culture.
Um, so our eternal mother and our eternal father have a connection, and the three primary emotions that are usually, so the three primary beliefs, as you mentioned, are it's not fair or it's not in integrity.
Mhm.
or I'm not enough,
Hmm. Absolutely.
or I've been abandoned.
Absolutely.
And the three primary emotions are anger, fear, and sadness.
Hmm. Yep.
And you can really distill, like, when you think of anger, fear, and sadness, if you say, okay, I'm feeling resentment, or I'm feeling this, or I'm feeling whatever you're feeling,
Yeah.
you can trace it back to either anger, fear, or sadness, or
Absolutely.
sometimes all three,
Yes.
you know.
Yes, that's very true.
And
Hmm.
those those three emotions you can always trace back as well
Yeah.
to those three beliefs that you just mentioned, which
Absolutely.
is I'm not enough, it's
Hmm.
not fair, or I've been abandoned.
Yeah. Early on in this work, these came through, and I'm not making up the emotions. Everybody understands that there are these emotions, but we usually give a lot of words. And anger is one that we give a lot of words to. So we give, like, I'm frustrated. A lot of times when I meet with somebody, there's usually a surface level where they're saying, I'm annoyed.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the annoyed word is a really interesting one, because typically what annoyed means is I'm angry, but I'm not directing it out to clarify or fix whatever thing is not fair. I'm directing it back at myself. And so
Mm,
that's the beginning of the process of being depressed. So if I'm frustrated and annoyed, then what am I doing? I'm essentially redirecting that energy because I don't feel safe. And so the safety of I'm angry is actually really hard to get to. A lot of times when you ask that of somebody, they'll say no. No, I'm not angry. No, of course not. But it's all there. And it's coming out in the words, it's coming out in all kinds of different ways that we express anger. And but the main one that I think is the most detrimental is redirecting it inward and downward back on the self and creating a depressive energy that then drops dopamine and loops back on itself and keeps us in that low state.
mm. Been thinking a little bit about codependence lately.
Hmm.
Maybe I don't really understand it. I think I have codependence and dependence a little, like, if they were two colors on my palette, I think they kind of overlap. Like, you got your chocolate and my peanut butter. Um,
Exactly.
so like like you know, okay, if a couple, let's say they're overly attached, right? They never
Hmm.
go anywhere without each other.
Sure.
Like, if he goes, she goes. If she goes, he goes. They go everywhere together, right? And
Hmm.
we call that codependent, don't we?
Definitely, yeah. Or
Okay.
dependent, right? It can actually be
It
quite
can be
dependent.
dependent.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, like, because you were saying something earlier, and I wanted to clarify. You were saying something about, oh, yeah, I don't really understand, and we've talked about it in a private session as well, but
Hmm.
I don't really understand hierarchy and codependence.
Hmm.
Can you
Yeah.
clarify for me?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, the way that we think about it is dependent is the hierarchies here, right? So here's the caregiver, we'll say, and here's the cared for. And humans basically they take a lot of care, right? Animals in some structures, basically it's like 24 hours, you're out, get out, go do something. Right? So we have these ways that we can see it play out in nature and with ourselves. So we have to spend how many years? At least 3, 4, into that fourth year of being primarily dependent. And you can, anyone who's had kids can hear that just around 2 years old, you start hearing no. And so that's a primary thing that begins the codependent relationship, where I'm completely dependent. I don't have a voice. I'm not talking, or I am just basically saying, this is the system I live in and there's nothing I can do. And that would be, represented in the world too, with, tyrannical government and, person that lives under that reign and basically says, there's nothing I can do. So I'm completely dependent on this situation. And so when we think of it like that is completely enmeshed. So that's this enmeshed story, right? And then the codependence basically has a choice of enmeshment. And a lot of times we say, a lot of people that are traumatized begin that separation of enmeshment but they're not ready. So they're in these early stages of codependence. So now they create a lot of fear. So the best way basically to understand codependence is fear, that I'm basically staying here because I'm afraid. And if we see that in a positive light, if these people die or leave and abandon me, I don't have the skills or the resources that I need to be able to survive or thrive. And so that's codependence. And
Well,
so, mhm,
do you remember when I was telling you one day, I won't name any names, but I was like,
mhm,
I have this long-term pattern of comparing myself to others and like,
yeah,
oh, he or she is more fill in the blank than I am or whatever.
yeah,
And
yeah,
you explained that as being um, hierarchical and
hmm
codependent, but I still don't get it. Like
hmm
if I think that somebody is above me, you know, that because it's hierarchical, it's codependent. I don't get it. Like,
Well, I think that's where we can kind of create a gray area there is like there is a hierarchy that is necessary. So there's a leader, there's a boss, there's something that is above me. And so with acceptance, surrender and acceptance, that's not codependent. So that hierarchy basically gets to live there. And I have acceptance, surrender. I've done these things essentially to say this is an integrity, and it has to be an integrity over here too. I'm the
oh,
leader, right? hmm
it's me in relationship to my judgment,
It can be, right? So
right?
judgment or attachment, right? This is the other way to think about that is if I'm overly attached, which usually is fear. So fear and attachment go hand in hand. So the more attached I am, the more codependent I am, the more enmeshed I am. And so, and the fact that I can't leave, that doesn't have independence built into it, that I don't have the resources or what I
Like
need.
not being able to leave a thought pattern.
Totally, absolutely, right? Not enough, not fair. So I'm just locked into the not fair, and I can't see another way because I'm so locked into it, and I have an
Okay.
emotion that feeds that. And so those are the things that go together as these two chakras, the the
Okay.
the emotional body and the mental body work together.
Yeah.
And as they flip and as they come into more of an alignment, what are we talking about? So we're talking about joy in the emotional body and happiness in the mental body. And so when things are not attached, they're joyful and happy. And I can be very joyful and happy as we have all had that experience as children of joy and happiness within a hierarchical relationship. And
And
so that's also doable.
you said that that's absence. So joy is the absence of emotion
Mhm.
and belief, and
Yeah,
happiness is the absence of belief.
absolutely. So we're shifting those beliefs from not fair to everything comes into integrity eventually. It's a tough belief because we have to see the bigness of it. We got to see the interconnectedness of it. We got to see that, that this cycle basically cycles. And so over on this side, not fair. When it gets over here, we got some integrity starting to build. And so this is where, wherever we're at on that cycle, is where we're going to judge or determine what it feels like, what this belief basically is showing up as.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground regarding the psychology behind the throat chakra, and and we've talked about the turquoise and the essential oil and the
hmm
eternal father, and
Yeah.
what about, like, is there a planet, a direction, a musical note, but also
hmm
what are tools that we can use, like, say my throat chakra is blocked, or I'm feeling some anger, or I'm feeling fear about expressing myself, or I'm having too much mental judgment or mental
hmm
activity, the gluttony of overusing the mind, the mental
hmm
body, like, can
Yeah.
you talk about those kind of things for a minute?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So this, how do I create balance when I realize, so when I become aware out of denial and into awareness, when I become aware that I'm using my mental body too much. So this is where I'm just everything I do is has to run through this brain. And it's really not built for this, right? The brain is basically built for, to create this duality, to make sure I know that I'm sitting in this chair. Am I really sitting in this chair? I'm not. Right? Am I really living in this body that you can see in this video? No. Right? These are all illusions. And so we have a brain that basically brings it back into truth. No, I have hands. I have a desk in front of me. I'm sitting on a chair. And so it's helpful, but we take that helpfulness of this mental body and we overuse it. So we gluttonize it. We're like, everything's got to run through this. It all has to make sense in my brain. And we run into somebody that is emotional and they say, no, it doesn't have to. It has to feel right. I have to think that it makes sense. And the other says, no, it has to feel. It has to feel right. Like this way that we do these things. I have stories about me as a kid and how if a shirt was sewn a little bit different, right? They do. And it
Yeah,
doesn't land on me in the way that it is in alignment, then I'm always pulling at it and adjusting it. It's like, it's wrong. Right?
I'm so your twin in that way.
Right? Absolutely. And so as a kid, right, these pants don't fit right. They don't fit. They don't feel right. I'm in my emotional body. And so, and that's very somatic. That's very connective to this physical experience. And so, but a really mental person would be like, just wear the pants. Just doesn't matter. Right. And so it's like, it does matter. It doesn't feel right. And so this is what we're doing. We're really into the body, really into this feeling sensation. And I'm not going to let that go. When we do Gestalt work in session, it is the feeling of it. And we rise that feeling up and put it out. And when we give words to this emotional body, it doesn't work. Even saying I'm angry really isn't as sufficient as just going, right? Just making a noise and being like, ah, right? That works because the emotional body feels happy. It's like, oh, you expressed something. But we're doing a lot of this. We're pushing a lot of that down. That's not appropriate in the grocery store to be making noises like that. So we say, all right, I have anger in the grocery store, but I'm going to take it home. And at some point in my process, my meditation, I'm going to do that. I'm going to stomp my feet and shake my hands and make a noise and say, it's okay. We'll do it later. Right. So, but you have to do it later. And if you don't, it'll come back out. It'll come back out in an inappropriate reactive way. And so this is what we do is we balance these bodies. So when I'm over in my head and it has to make sense, I can move to the emotional body and I can say, what does it feel like? Where do I feel it in my body? And that's just a way to move the consciousness, the awareness of my awareness from focused on the mental to bringing it down into that emotion. And I say, oh, wow, well, it hurts on my right side, my left side. It's right where my spleen is. I wonder why that is. Oh, it hurts on my right side, right where the liver is. There's a pain there. Is it my ribs or is it my liver? Right? So, and when we get into that, we can get out of the brain. And this work that I do, answering questions, talking to guides, it lends itself very to the mental body and getting questions answered. And so we have to basically create a balance when we do this work. And so it's always able. When I am caught in the mental, I can go to emotional. When I'm caught in emotional, I can go to the physical. When I'm caught in the physical, I go to my spirit body. And I do these meditations where I surrender and just kind of let go of all of these things and become part of the oneness. And that can help regulate. So these are all ways to regulate and say, I have a bunch of different bodies. I can use them all. And is that happening out there in the world as much? It's not. I'm not
So,
doing that.
and if I'm stuck in my mental body, I can go to my emotional body. If I'm stuck in my emotional body, I can go to my physical body. If I'm stuck in my physical body, I can go to my spirit body.
Absolutely.
That's freaking brilliant.
Yeah, right. So it's just, I've got another option. So, and a lot of people are super dissociated and stuck in their spirit body. So what do we do then? Come back into the mental. Right. So,
oh, really? I would think come back to the Physical.
And you can, right? And so these are all options,
They're
right?
connected. 1 and
Hmm.
7 is 8, man.
Absolutely, right? So get really
So
into that root.
you're saying come back into the mental.
But either one, right? So I mean, that's the easiest one because that's the one that we have the awareness of. And so, but like you said, if you can get into your root chakra, get those sits bones on the earth, really connect into the earth. So that's why meditation works. Connected to the earth, connected to the ether, connected to spirit. So that's why this stuff works, is because we are able to do these layers. And that's really what we're doing here, is we're saying we're going to give you some ways to understand it. How do you know you're in your mental? It's not fair. You're not enough. You feel abandoned, right? And you can pretty much tune into that and go, hmm. And we usually say, which is interesting, I feel not enough. But is that really a feeling? It's not. Usually that's sadness. So usually the not enough is linked to sadness. And so we're, again, really tentative to tell people we're sad. But if we really could do that, we use the word sorry a lot instead of sad. And just think about that. If you're using sorry, then you're probably saying sad. Like, your sadness creates sadness in me. I feel sadness in me. But we say my feelings are hurt a lot, right? That's another one. I think we talked about that. So it's like, saying my feelings are hurt means I'm feeling. Right? So it's not, they're not hurt, they're just
Feelings
feeling.
themselves can get hurt.
Exactly, right?
You
So
hurt my
it's just,
feelings.
I am feeling and I don't want to. So if I'm going to say my feelings are hurt, that's what I'm saying. I want to stay in my mind. I don't want to stay in my feelings, and my
Feeling
feelings.
my feelings hurts me.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're saying is making me feel my feelings.
See, these are really good ways that we can talk to people and actually say real truths instead of the lies and the right. And lies is a big word, but it's the untruths of the illusion that get us off track. And where do we go when we get off track? Reactive. We get very reactive. And what's creating reaction? The beliefs and the emotions.
I'm not reactive.
No. No, this is how I should, this is, and this is where we can say, you just have to accept the way I am. Right? That
That's the
happens,
cop out.
right? It happens a lot in relationship. And what it is no, I don't have to do that. It would be better if I accepted the way you were, because then you might have a chance to change. But I don't have to, because you've got all kinds of options to not be this way, to not be reactive. There's plenty of options that you can learn how not to be reactive. But unfortunately, we taught you in this culture that reaction is fine. And this is basically, we're just going to accept it. And then every day when I turn on the news, people are dead. That's reaction. And it has to stop. We have to learn these lessons and we have to implement them in our own self so that we can be the change that we want to see in the world. We have to do that.
Road rage is not okay.
It's not.
Killing people is not okay.
It's not okay.
War is not okay.
It's not. It's just a reaction. It's just being more in that underdeveloped place where there's plenty of development that you can learn and implement that is beyond that place. And it is worth it.
Big stuff.
It is big stuff.
We have a few more minutes. I
Yeah.
do need to stroll across the room and get my cord real quick. But in the meantime,
Yeah.
can you touch on? Oh God, it was brilliant what I had. We were talking about war and anger and golly, it was so beautiful. I can't believe it escaped.
You wanted to talk about thank you, please, and thank you too, which is definitely something we can do.
I did want to talk about please.
The magic words. I can do that as it comes back to you. Again, throat chakra open. The guidance will come back.
Yeah. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Is a great thing.
Nice.
The 3 gates that all your words should pass through before they ever come out of your mouth. Right? So yeah, let's talk about please and thank you, and I'll see if I can retrieve that thought I had.
Awesome. Excellent. Yeah. So that's one of the things we were talking about in our class, the integrity process. And we're saying, just kind of jumping back into, everyone as a child maybe has heard this. These are the magic words, please and thank you. And what we're talking about here in regards to is please as a request. And that when we have this open and balanced throat chakra, we can more easily request. And so we can make a request of someone or a situation or a workplace situation that feels not in integrity or not fair. And we can say, please, can it be this way? And so just think about that in your lives and how it plays out and where you have opportunities to say please that you don't. And this is definitely, these magic words are very underused. And so think about that as you're out and about in your life and even in the self. Can I please take time for myself today to create a meditative place, this stance? And thank you is another critical response, that this throat chakra does this thing where people will apply a compliment, and we will say, oh, no, 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 blah blah blah, this, that, and the other, right? We're all the negative thoughts, we're just going to kick them back up. So try this when the next time you get a compliment or some sort of I'm proud of you or praise, to take a breath and to say thank you. It's a very vulnerable thing to do. It even kind of brings an emotion as I say it, like thank you. It is a radical shift in how you are being in the world, to just say thank you to somebody. And we don't do it enough. And this would be a challenge to all of you listening. Please and thank you. They're magic words. They are throat chakra and they do make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, thank you.
You're welcome. Right? That's another one. You're welcome. That's another one that is part of this story.
I wish I had, I feel like I had this huge question that was almost like a spiritual epiphany.
I love that. Yes.
Left me.
That's excellent. Well, it's in that flower of life behind you there. It'll come forward and you'll add it to the comments, and it'll just make it even more beautiful, our conversation today, rich and full and beautiful and sacred.
Yeah.
Right? Because this sacredness is what's going on here. We really take the sacredness out of life when we overuse things. Mm-hmm. And so think about that too. What are the substances that you're overusing? And how can you come back into integrity with those substances? Mm-hmm. And how can you be then sacred? That you are honoring the sacredness of what you say, and honoring this whole study of nonviolent communication. That is an excellent place to look. How do you want to communicate with a partner? How do you want to be more in integrity with your words, and how you can, give and receive in a conversation? Nonviolent communication is an excellent tool for that.
And if I want to begin exercising my throat chakra
mm-hmm.
in a balanced way and have the confidence that I want to have, but also not be harsh with my voice, and just like develop a relationship with
mm-hmm.
my throat chakra.
Yeah.
What is a statement I can use or a mantra I can say that will lend itself to that?
Absolutely. So we will use that word that is the grace, courage, and we'll just repeat the phrase, I am courageous. And if you do that a few times, this is one of the things with language that's kind of fun to play with. I am courageous, I'm courageous, I'm courageous, I'm courageous, I'm courageous. It starts to lose the actual word structure, and it just becomes a sound, like a mantra. I am courageous, 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 I am courageous. And so for the chakra itself, right? And so just that word is kind of a silly word at a certain point. It's like courageous, 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 courageous. Right? So have some fun with that. Right? So, and the brain starts to turn off because the brain wants it to sound like courageous. But if you say it fast and you say it in this mantra way, then it'll just kind of take on the energy of the throat chakra. So this was like a mantra, like the recommended throat chakra mantra, Om Gum Ganapataye Namaha, right? Ganesha. Right? Om Gum Ganapatiye Namaha, Om Gum Ganapatiye Namaha, Om Gum Ganapatiye Namaha, Om Gum
That's the third
Ganapatiye.
chakra mantra?
Yeah. So this is the remover of obstacles. Usually, what's the obstacle? Beliefs, negative beliefs.
Mm.
Right. And it is, so it's this one that I use the most in that chakra to just release even the ability to do that, right? The catch in the throat or the cough or right, whatever's going on in that throat chakra will definitely come up when you do that mantra.
Did you suggest, I feel like we've talked about this mantra on another video. Did you suggest this also?
I might have done it for emotion because it is the mother too. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's good for both. Yeah. And
Absolutely.
also, I like saying Om Goom instead of Om Gam.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
but when I've looked at other videos or gone to look at it
Yeah.
other places, they don't say Goom, they say Gom. But I like Goom. If they spell it Gam, but we say it Goom,
Exactly. Hmm.
right?
Absolutely.
What's the like? Why does it matter?
It kind of does, like you said, it has a different feeling to it. And so I don't know what that is, but I do know that Sanskrit itself is all about how it resonates in the throat, how it comes out, how that sounding basically is really critical to the body, to health, to all these different things that we use mantra for, but mostly to get rid of that cycling negative thoughts. That mantra basically works for that. And that's another way that, if I've got these cycling negative thoughts, I'm worried, I wake up worried. This phrase that we've used, I'm grateful for this precious human life, and how that can intervene in a way, and it can actually elicit emotion. I'm grateful for this precious human life. If you're really in a struggle, you're probably not. And so that would be a way to basically bring awareness to that. Like, no, I'm angry, right? I'm super angry at this situation. Like, okay, well, let's go there. Let's deal with that anger. Let's get it out. Let's make a sound. Let's shake the body, right? So all of these things have a way that we can simply regulate. And I think that's really key, is that the simplicity of it, that just saying I am courageous brings you back into a fullness of the throat chakra. And dopamine is tied to this system very well because we're talking about addiction. I can is the phrase that helps build dopamine. I can, 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 I can. When you listen to, right, the prayer, the 12-step prayer, basically, that is, I can control the things I can control, right? So you're saying it several times in that way. And so I just simplified it into ask the guides, what's the thing that raises dopamine after we've been on a screen for a while, or we've been, in situations that are diminishing our dopamine? I can. It's a very simple statement. I can. I can, I can, I can. When we're out of our body and we're feeling like trauma just bounced us out of our body, I am okay. Very powerful statement. I am okay. So, yeah, there's lots of statements like this that just are simple, that just bring us back. And test this out as a listener when we recommend these things, how you don't do them. When you really have all kinds of time and space to be able to do these very simple things, breathe in 6, exhale 12, just notice after many days that you haven't done it. And just note that that's developmental. Don't beat yourself up about it. Just say, these are stages of development to get to these places. We're going from a very complex lower level of development to a very simple upper level of development. It doesn't get more complex. It gets easier, but it gets harder to do. Right? It gets harder to implement because this brain says it's got to be complicated in order for it to work. And I say no. You
How
drink,
boring.
right? You drink water and it works. That's not complicated.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, Kevin has been very generous with us. Well, I wish there would have been hundreds of people on here, but I guess my prayer is that thousands,
Yes,
millions of people shall see this in the future. And
absolutely.
I am always grateful for you
Mm,
coming on here, and always
me too.
grateful for all the accompaniment of spirit and such that joins us when we have
Absolutely.
these lovely meetings.
Yes.
And we are going to bid the audience adieu. There is an anonymous person out there. I wonder if it might be Jalahi from Creative Knowledge YouTube channel, but I can't be sure because he didn't make any comments.
All right.
But
Well,
somebody's out there. So whoever you are, thank you for
thank you.
watching with us. And we will see you in a month for the third eye chakra.
Excellent.
Have a great
I'll be
day,
there.
everybody. Blessings. Did you want to say
Blessing.
one last thing?
No, definitely. I'm just so grateful as well. And, we're headed towards that place where we can be truly grateful, this generosity that you're sharing with the world. And I'm just matching that generosity and paying it forward. And we just encourage everybody listening, learn some stuff here, apply it out in the world, pay it forward, make the world a different place.
Yeah. And pay it forward. One of the ways you can pay it forward is by sharing this video.
Absolutely.
Ciao, ciao, everybody. We
All
love
right.
ya.
Blessings.